After 43 years of playing guitar, I've made every mistake you can think of, probably more than once. But these mistakes taught me lessons that changed everything. If you're just starting out, and especially if you're picking up the guitar later in life, these 30 hard lessons will save you years of frustration. For years, I struggled with retaining what I had practiced, especially after a long day at work. My brain was kind of fried. I did some experimenting, and I found that if I scheduled my practice sessions in the morning, I actually retained a lot more, and it seemed a lot easier. I seemed to learn more quickly. Lesson number 1 is to schedule your practice sessions in the morning. Now, I get it, we're not all morning people. I didn't think of myself as a morning person until I gave it a shot, and I found that it seemed I made so much more progress in the morning than when I practiced at night. It was well worth keeping it up. Give it a try. If it doesn't work for you, you can always find another time where you're reasonably alert and you're not just going through the motions. Now, I think of my brain in the morning as a fresh brain, and it's a sponge for new material. Over the years, I created a lot of tension habits in my hands, my shoulders, in my back, mostly from playing like that, and it caused me pain and eventually limited my playing. I eventually found a teacher who emphasized playing with relaxed technique, and he showed me how much easier it is to play without fighting muscle tension constantly. Lesson number 2 is to make playing relaxed a focus from day one. Go ahead and shake out your hands and move your shoulders from time to time. Breathe. And if you have to, take a little short break. It's much easier to play and learn to play with relaxed technique than to undo years of tension later on. Have you ever had one of those days where you just couldn't tell if you're progressing or not? I know I often felt stuck because I couldn't see my progress on a daily basis, and it was frustrating. It even made me want to quit sometimes. Then, at the advice of a teacher I admired, I started recording my practice sessions. And I found that this actually helped me see that I was making progress as well as identify issues I needed to work on. Lesson number 3 is to make 2 types of videos. One is to identify issues that you need to work on. You can just delete those when you're done with them. And the second one is to record your progress over time. These are going to prove to be gold when you hit one of those plateaus. When I first started out, I had a couple of friends that were pretty good on guitar, and it inspired me. And I found myself comparing myself to them and feeling inadequate. They seemed not only good, but naturally talented. I realized after a while that this comparison trap really was stealing the joy out of playing guitar, and it actually was slowing me down because I felt defeated, and then I didn't want to practice, and it was a cycle. The best you can, focus exclusively on your own progress and don't compare yourself to others. Celebrate your own progress and your own wins. Everyone's journey is different. Someone once told me not to compare your inside to what you see on someone else's outside. You really don't know what's going on with them. In fact, they might be feeling inadequate because they're comparing themselves to someone they think is better. Focus on your own progress, and you'll be much happier for it. As a young adult, I enrolled in the university with the intention of getting better at guitar. They had a great guitar instructor. But I found myself getting caught up in the music theory. It was interesting and really could dig my teeth into it. But I found out it put a damper on my enjoyment of actual playing music and even listening to music sometimes, thinking about how it's put together and all the concepts. When I finally let go of trying to think everything out, my playing became more expressive and it became more enjoyable. Lesson number 5 is to spend more time listening and playing music than thinking and analyzing. Theory is useful, but in its place. As adults, we tend towards our intellect. It served us well over the years. It's got us through school, and successful at work. But when it comes to the arts, music, dancing, painting, the intellect sometimes can actually get in your way. If you try too hard to understand the concepts first and not allow yourself to play, it actually will hold you back. Use your ears more than your thinking and allow yourself to play and feel the music that you're trying to play over trying to analyze and think if this is the right thing to play. I used to think long practice sessions were the key to getting really good at guitar, but I couldn't maintain this schedule, and a lot of times I end up not practicing at all. Then I noticed that friends who were practicing only 50 minutes a day or so, but consistently, were actually improving faster than me with my marathon practice sessions. Remember that story, The Rabbit and the Hare? That's an Aesop fable? Well, I've seen that story play out so many times at my music school. The moral is, it's better to practice short practice sessions consistently than long practice sessions occasionally. Even 10 to 15 minutes of consistent practice will build those neural pathways that are needed to play guitar well. It's not how long you practice, but rather how consistently you practice that makes all the difference. For years, I kept putting off practicing regularly until I had more time, until this project was over, until the kids were off school, or until things settled down. I finally realized that there is never a right time, that things never completely settle down, and I've been wasting years of doing something I really want to do. Lesson number 7 is to start now with whatever time you have. Even 10 minutes a day is better than some mystical future where you won't be busy. Your future self will thank you for starting when you did, no matter how small. I used to constantly battle with practicing when to practice, and I'd often push it off until I was tired, and inevitably my willpower would fail me. Then I started creating systems. First, really simple. Put my guitar out, so when I went to get my morning tea, there it was sitting by the table where I was going to have my tea. And it really worked. It eliminated a lot of that internal struggle. Design your environment to make practicing easy and automatic. Keep your guitar where you have your morning coffee. Set a specific time that you're going to practice. Make it a no-brainer. This is what I do at this time, and everything's set up and ready to go. It can really help to attach guitar practice to another thing, like when you pour your coffee, you go practice the guitar, and that becomes an automatic habit. When practice becomes a routine instead of a decision you constantly have to make, you will practice more. This one's related to the last lesson. When my guitar was tucked away nice and safe in the closet, I found that even when I had time, I would often not make that little extra effort to pull the guitar out and make time to practice. Simply put, a guitar on the stand in the living room increased dramatically the times I would actually pick it up and practice. Keep at least one guitar on the stand out where you can see it, where you have to walk by it. The difference between keeping the guitar in the closet, in the case, and having it out where you can see it is often the difference between playing and not playing. I started on a really terrible guitar. The strings are way off the frets, and the sound was tinny, and it wouldn't stay in tune, and I didn't know better. Until a friend of my father's gave me a better guitar. Ironically, at first, I didn't like it. It just felt different. But then I noticed that things I thought I couldn't play started to sound better, and I was encouraged to play them more and to practice more. Lesson number 10 is to get the best guitar that you can afford, even better than what you think you deserve as a beginner. If possible, have 2 guitars. That way, if something's wrong with one, you still have a guitar to practice on, and it's kind of motivating to switch between guitars and try something out on the other guitar, see how it sounds. I used to constantly feel disappointed with how good I played, even after decades of playing guitar. But then I realized from playing with even incredible guitar players that it's a universal feeling. No matter how good you are, you can always be better. And it's actually a sign of growth because your ears grow faster than your actual technical abilities. Lesson number 11 is to just accept that you'll never be as good as you think you should be. And that's actually okay. This just means that you're growing. Focus on enjoying where you are right now, and at the same time being okay with that feeling of wanting to be better, on improving. This dance or kind of tension between being satisfied where you are and striving to be better is just part of the journey. I think we all know that hitting a plateau is just part of how you learn something, but it's hard to accept that emotionally. I know I felt discouraged many times when I felt like my progress is either very slow or even going backwards. It really helped me to realize that plateaus are actually your brain consolidating the skills that you've been working on behind the scenes, and they're actually a necessary part of learning a skill. When you hit a plateau, don't panic and don't quit. Just shift your focus slightly to a different aspect of playing. Maybe review the basics or try something completely new. Progress isn't linear, and it certainly isn't linear as far as an emotional journey goes. It plateaus, it spikes, it drops, and seems to even go backwards. But behind the scenes, if you were to look back, you'll see you're actually growing. Ha! Did you notice I picked a different guitar? You can do that when you have more than one guitar. As the learning process went on over the years, I often felt like I didn't fully understand something, but, I didn't always need to. Until I started teaching others. And going back to the basics, I thought was great for the student, but I didn't realize how much it actually helped me to solidify and to better understand a lot of the foundation stuff that I had been working on. Lesson number 13 is to find opportunities to teach other people, even if you're just in the beginning stages. Show a chord to a family member or help a friend out with a tune. Any way that you can, your teaching others will actually be serving yourself as well. I found that teaching clarifies your thinking and solidifies a lot of concepts better than anything else. This one really hits home for me. I waited years before creating my own music, mostly because I thought I wasn't talented enough or worthy to actually write music. When I finally tried creating my own music, I found it wasn't that mysterious or complicated, even with my basic technical skills. More importantly, I found it incredibly satisfying. Don't wait. Start creating your own simple tunes or melodies or chord progressions, even if you're just beginning. Record your ideas on some recording device. I like to use my phone nowadays. Even just simple melodies or chord progressions. Some of my most rewarding moments have been creating something original. But you'll never know if that's something you enjoy if you don't give it a shot. I can be pretty hard on myself. My harsh self-criticism and frustration around what I was playing often slowed my practice down and made it pretty miserable. I noticed when I was teaching others that I'm a lot more patient, and patience helps people to learn better and to accept new ideas. When you feel good about yourself, you tend to put yourself out more. You practice more, you play more, you get better. Lesson number 15 is to speak kindly to yourself in the way that you would teach a child. When you make a mistake, respond with curiosity instead of judgment and criticism. This actually isn't just being nice, it's actually a more effective way to learn. Like most people, I used to judge whether I was doing a good job by how well I could play something, especially if I practiced something, whether I could play it well or not, made me decide if I was progressing or if I should feel good about my practice. I realized after a while, I can't really control how fast I'm progressing. Hear me out. I can't control how I feel about how fast I'm progressing. It's not always accurate how I feel. And in fact, you got this whole thing of plateaus that you can't really do anything about. It's just part of the learning process. So I shifted my focus to what I could control, which is showing up and doing the work, and let the progress take care of itself. It worked. It made me feel better about my guitar practice. I practiced more, and I actually think it made better progress. Lesson number 16 is to focus on what you can actually control. You can control showing up and doing the practice. And you can control being patient with yourself, going over something again and again, even if you don't feel like it. You can't control whether or not you perceive that you're progressing or playing as well as you should be playing. Let go of constantly judging yourself. Just show up consistently and have faith that progress will take care of itself. When I first started teaching, I noticed that a lot of students would want to choose songs that were way above the actual level that they were at. And I can relate because that's often the way I did things when I started out. The problem was, by stretching to something that was far above what they were ready for, it created a lot of tension and bad technique habits that persisted over time. I found that there's kind of a sweet spot between something that's too difficult but something that's challenging, something that's just enough to give you a chance to reach for it, but at the same time, not so hard that you can't get there without compromising your technique and tensing up and creating bad habits that'll linger on forever. Choose practice material that's just a little bit above where you are now that can create a challenge without being unattainable or overwhelming you. A slightly difficult piece that's practiced with good technique can help build your skills, while something that's too hard that causes you to practice with poor technique will actually create bad habits that you'll have to undo later. The first instrument I tried was trumpet. What an experience. I would try to practice during my family's favorite TV times. I wasn't interested, so I thought it was a good time to pull out my trumpet and practice. I practiced in another room, but trumpet's pretty loud. My mom would ask me, could you hold on and practice later? I got the message. The trumpet wasn't welcome, and I began to feel awkward whenever I practiced. Thought I was disturbing people, and maybe I was. Of course, this led to me practicing inconsistently, which led to not playing well, which got me criticized in class. All in all, I ended up giving up on trumpet. Now, when I practice my guitar, I make sure it's at times that I've agreed upon with my wife, and things go a lot easier. I'm not disturbing her. I feel good about my practice. She feels good about my practice, and it makes it a lot easier for me to want to practice. Lesson number 18 is to take time and have a conversation with your family about when you're going to practice and what you're trying to do and what it means to you. Get them on your side. That way you can agree on times of practice where everybody's happy, but also you can get them to kind of hold you accountable for your practice when you say you do. A supportive home environment makes a huge difference in your ability to schedule your practice and practice regularly. I used to have a coffee mug with big letters that said, "Tune it or die." A little dramatic, but I used to skip tuning sometimes, partly out of laziness, but partly because I had to go search for a tuner. Solved that problem. I just have an iPhone handy all the time with an electronic tuner right on my iPhone. Plus, I have tuners all over the house, so I'm never without one. It's a lot more fun to play when you're in tune, and you're training your ears, and it's important to hear everything in tune to make that process smoother and to go faster. Get several electronic tuners and have them in places where you're going to practice all the time, so you're never without one. Take a few minutes and just tune your guitar each time you sit down. Playing in tune not only sounds better and is more fun, but it trains your ears faster. This little thing makes a big difference. I spend a lot of energy blaming outside stuff for my slow progress on guitar. I would blame my lack of time to practice. I would blame teachers for not teaching me the right thing or knowing how to teach me. When I finally accepted that no one can actually do the work for me and took full responsibility for my own progress, things became easier and I progressed faster. While teachers are a valuable resource, take responsibility for your own progress. Seek out the information that you need. Ask questions. Put in the practice time. A good teacher helps you most with what you don't know that you don't know, but take responsibility and ownership for your own learning progress. In a younger incarnation, I constantly chased more advanced techniques and songs. A real awakening for me was when I went to a university and the first song I played for the teacher was a song that I thought I was doing okay on, and he told me, "You're not ready. Put that away and we'll come back to it later." The message was clear. I was trying to do something I wasn't ready for. I went back and started working more on the basics and found the teacher was 100% right. I ended up playing in a more relaxed way with less effort. My music sounded better and it was more fun. And in fact, it was a real eye-opener to see I didn't really have to constantly feel like I was swimming upstream. The lesson here is to spend serious time in the fundamentals and progressive exercises, even if they're boring to you. Clean chord changes, rhythmic precision, smooth picking technique, all of these don't seem flashy in the moment, but they're the building blocks of everything impressive that you want to play down the line. I used to make grand practice plans that I couldn't actually stick to. I'd end up feeling guilty, I'd feel like I'm a failure, and I would lose motivation. When I started making smaller commitments and then keeping them, I found that I really underestimated how much it means to me to be able to keep the commitments that I make to myself. And the best way I found to do that is to make small commitments I could keep and then build on that. Lesson number 22 is to make a realistic practice schedule that you can actually keep and then set out to keep that promise to yourself. Start with shorter sessions. You can always expand. I'm talking 10-15 minutes. One of the things in general that learning guitar has taught me is that making and keeping commitments to yourself is way more important than I ever realized. By making and keeping commitments to yourself, you little by little build your self-esteem and your confidence, and this transfers over into anything that you want to do. There was a period where I spent most of my time practicing songs I already knew. Because it was fun, it was ego-boosting, and it was easier than practicing stuff that I needed to work on. But it had a consequence. I ended up plateauing tremendously because I wasn't working on areas that I actually needed to improve. Lesson number 23 is to divide up your practice sessions strategically and spend a good portion of the time working on things you actually need to improve on. And yes, it's perfectly fine to spend some time at the end of your practice playing something that's fun that you know how to play. Maybe even dedicate a whole practice once a week to just playing songs that you know. You're going to progress faster. Think of it like you're balancing vegetables with dessert in your healthy musical diet. And that way you'll keep progressing and stay motivated. Like most people, I used to feel discouraged when I didn't see immediate results from my practicing. And it's easy to feel that way, I get it. But I've learned to look at this as a long game and not just short-term wins. When I look back over the years, I can see how those consistent small steps turned into skills that I used to think were impossible. Lesson 24 is to focus on the long game rather than quick wins. We naturally overestimate what we can accomplish in a week, but dramatically underestimate what we can achieve in a year-long of steady practice. Think of the pebbles at the beach. They were one time rough, jagged rocks, and the ocean just slowly but surely whittled away as the rocks still became round and smooth. If you just looked at those and tried to imagine water turning that into nice, smooth rocks, it would seem impossible. It's just persistence. Trust that your consistent efforts will compound over time and produce results. I noticed that with a lot of students at my music school, that initial excitement wears off and they lose interest or feel like things are just going too slow and quit. I get it. Initially, there's a lot of excitement with starting something new, but then you hit the middle phase, I'll call it, and things slow down and it seems like work. It's not fun. And that's kind of the place where people say, gee, I got into this to have fun. But just over the horizon is more fun than you can imagine. Fun is also feeling good about progressing and making music and doing things that you dream of doing. Lesson 25 is to just recognize that this middle phase is where progress feels slow and difficult, but actually where the most important growth happens. Most people quit, claiming it's not fun anymore. Don't be one of them. The real magic in your playing happens just past that point where most people want to give up. Yeah, we all have this inner critic. You know what I mean. My own negative thoughts would constantly tell me I couldn't do this, was wasting time, or I wasn't talented enough. I eventually realized that these thoughts weren't facts. They're just my brain's way of keeping me in my comfort zone. Expect discouraging mental chatter and just plan to work through it. When negative thoughts come up, go ahead and acknowledge them, thank them for sharing, and then just move on. Keep practicing anyway. This voice gets tireder with time if you continuously ignore it and just keep showing up. I developed back pain when I was fairly young, of course from slumping over a lot and not having good posture. It not only hurt, but it made me tired, and it made it hard to want to practice. Making simple changes in my practice setup and overall health habits dramatically improved how long and how effectively I could practice. That, and I got some help from some therapy. Lesson 27 is to use a good chair and proper back support and maintain good posture while you're practicing. Take care of your overall health, get adequate sleep, hydration, and regular movement. I like to get up every 25 minutes and stretch. Even if you're practicing for 10-15 minutes, make sure to do a little stretching. Just remember, if you get tired and sick and you're in a lot of pain, you're going to have a hard time getting better at guitar. Your body is your primary instrument. Treat it well. I mentioned stretching in the last lesson, and in fact, just talking about it makes me want to improve my posture. There was a period there where I had a lot of back pain, and I started getting cramping in my hands. So I found that by stretching my fingers and my hands a little bit before I practice and a little bit after helps prevent hand pain. Also, stretching my back I cannot recommend it enough. It has become so important. And when I say stretching, I'm talking about gentle, very mindful stretches, not something where you're going to hurt yourself, but part of the process is being present with your body and really feeling how far you can stretch and what you really need. Lesson 28 is to do hand stretches every time you start to practice, and I recommend in between practices as well, just to keep your hands from getting sore. Also, do some back stretching. Simple yoga type exercises, mindfully, gently, can take you a long ways and prevent a lot of problems down the line. We all get caught up from time to time in the technical side of things. I know I do. I'll get caught up in trying to get an exercise up to a certain speed, and after a while I lose touch with why I wanted to play guitar in the first place. I found that by deliberately making time to listening to good, inspiring music, and sometimes to play just for fun, it rekindles that enthusiasm that I had when I first started and gets me through some difficult practice periods. Make time to listen to music regularly, and music that inspires you, that you enjoy, and sometimes play just for fun, with no other agenda other than to enjoy the music. Connecting with why you love music keeps the flame alive, especially during those times when, inevitably, you're going to find challenging periods in your practice. I used to believe I needed to reach a near virtuoso level to find real satisfaction in playing guitar, which created unnecessary pressure and disappointment. I finally realized that some of the happiest guitarists I know play just for fun, for themselves, for their friends, and they find deep fulfillment without ever performing on huge stages. Define success on your own terms. Ask yourself what truly matters about playing guitar rather than adapting to someone else's definition of success. The joy of making music is available to every skill level, and you don't need to be a virtuoso to experience the deep satisfaction of playing music. I have one more bonus lesson for you, and it's a good one. I want you to know that even if one of these lessons finds its home in your life and helps you to enjoy your guitar journey more, this whole video thing has been a success for me, and it's been worth it. For me, this isn't just about playing guitar. This is about being the person that you want to be, the person you imagine yourself to be. This is about living a life that brings you joy and fulfillment. With that, let's go on to the final lesson, bonus lesson 31. For years, I struggled with learning songs the hard way. I was treating each song as a completely new project from scratch. I'd slog through note by note, chord by chord, making learning slow and inefficient. Then I took a theory class at a community college, and the instructor showed me that composers use the same progressions repeatedly. Suddenly, I realized that even in popular music, they were playing the same progressions. There weren't hundreds of unique songs, but a handful of patterns with different keys, rhythms, and melodies, and different instrumentation, so it sounded different. Lesson 31 is to learn to recognize common chord progressions. Instead of seeing each song as unique, practice those patterns in multiple keys. When you're learning new music, identify the progression first. Then you'll already know which part you played and which part you need to work on. That single shift will cut your learning time dramatically, and it'll transform how you understand music. To learn more how this works, check out my video, Common Chord Progressions for Guitarists.